on, Hidden History fans? It's 1985, and I got my crimped hair, my sunglasses, and my Batwing shirt. In today's video, we are going to discuss 20 iconic things that the 1980s were known for, so stay tuned. Also, I didn't want to waste this look because I got invited to a 1980s party, and I thought this looked really cool on camera. So, stay tuned for 1980s 20 iconic things. Hello, 1980s. Oh boy, here we go. I'd like to apologize if you hear any background noises such as barking dogs or sirens, but I live in a very noisy neighborhood, one that I hope to leave one day. And I swear it's getting more noisy than usual. Anyways, welcome to the 1980s. Now, the 1980s was a time of social changes that had not been widely accepted in previous decades. It was an age of rebellion and individualism, mainly expressed by loud, oversized clothing and half an inch of caked-on makeup. If you lived through this time, as I did, I think we can all agree that the 1980s was a very interesting decade, and here are 20 reasons why. Number 1, the color palette. All the bright colors in the world were thrown up into the 1980s. After the earth tones of the 70s that were clearly stolen from the produce aisle at the grocery store, avocado anyone? The world suddenly seemed to explode with color in a ferocity not seen since the 60s. Everything from furniture to hair dye seemed to scream, "Is there an artist in the house?" Big and bold was the rule of thumb, and you just know that thumbnail was painted with a loud shade of pink, with polka dots. Neon colors made their way into everything, from sweaters to Crayola crayons, and nobody ever asked, "Is this jacket too loud?" Those who weren't into the super saturated colors went for pastels instead, which were also pretty popular. Take a look at any 1980s photo with people, and you're probably going to need your sunglasses. Even your makeup wasn't safe from extreme saturations of color. Neon eyeshadow and bright pink lipstick were the thing, and jewelry also competed for visual attention with gigantic stones in bright colors and heavy chains. Number 2, home computers launched by IBM in 1981. What did they do? Not much. You could type up papers, play a few video games. Well, you could play a few games like Wagon Trail or something like that. Organize your family budget, but other than that, the family computer just sat in the corner, creating static and causing your older relatives to exclaim, "What the heck is that thing?" Number 3, the microwave. As well as improvements in word processing, kitchen tasks became a little easier with the introduction of this big metal box that promised dinner in under 5 minutes. Gone were the days in which you had to reheat leftovers in an oven, which took forever, or in glass jars in a pot of water on the stove. That's what my mom told me anyway. All you had to do was put the food on a plate, pop it into the microwave, hit a few buttons, beep, 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 and hope your food doesn't blow up. This is probably the reason that frozen dinners no longer come in metal trays. I wonder if the first person to discover that metal and microwave ovens just don't mix. Did they live to tell the tale? And since the microwave is made of metal, how does it not blow itself up? I have so many questions. Number 4, big hair, again. The 60s had the beehives, the 80s had the electric socket look. I personally believe that the millions of cans of Aquanet we used back then were single-handedly responsible for most of the ozone damage that we were so afraid of back in the day. I mean, how else were we going to keep our crimped hair from blowing in the wind? Becoming a walking fire hazard was just a chance we were willing to take. Number 5, video games played at home. The launch of Nintendo and Game Boy was unlike anything kids had ever seen. Gone were the days of fishing for quarters under the couch amid the Cheeto crumbs so you could go to the arcade. Now you could fish for quarters to buy yourself a soda at the corner deli and play your games at home with no time limit and have your friends or brothers and sisters join you. Number 6, the age of fantasy and sci-fi genre movies. From Star Wars to E.T. to The Neverending Story, there was a definite rise in popularity of the fantasy genre. Probably because special effects were getting so much better. Animatronics were widely used to mimic the realistic movements of non-human creatures, and to a child of the 80s, it was a nice change from seeing them like in animated form, like in a hand-drawn cartoon. Also, around this time, the first PG-13 rated movies appeared, which was great if you were sick of all the family-friendly stuff, yet didn't want to see the rated R stuff. Number 7. Music, mixtapes, and the Walkman. The 1980s introduced new music genres such as hip-hop, new wave, and music that included very electric sounds. Icons like Madonna and Michael Jackson ruled the roost of the music scene. Today, we have endlessly long playlists on Spotify, YouTube, and other audio streaming platforms. On those, one click of a button can add a song to a seemingly endless playlist. But in the 80s, your playlist was limited to the length of a cassette tape. And it took work. After you sat for days by the radio trying to catch the beginnings of your favorite songs to record, you also had to remember to flip the tape when you wanted to listen to the other side. Kind of like a vinyl record. Sometimes the first half of a song would be at the end of one side of the tape, and the rest of it would be on the beginning of the other side. And then you had to rewind it so you could re-listen to it. Mixtapes were often exchanged as little gifts between friends or given to your girlfriend or boyfriend, even as late as the 1990s. I got one in 1999 from my boyfriend, whom I later married. Mixtapes were considered to be very thoughtful gifts because of all the work it took to make one. Gifting someone a Spotify playlist just wouldn't mean as much. And vinyl records, although they were still going strong, the portability of cassette tapes soon outshone them. And once CDs became mainstream, both tapes and vinyl ended up in thrift stores. Don't know about you though, I am so glad vinyl is back, and I hope it's back to stay. Kids these days will never understand, which brings me to the next item on our list, VCRs. There was once a time you sifted through a printed television schedule called the TV Guide to see what time and date your favorite movies and shows would be broadcasted on. And if you missed the viewing, sucks to be you. My mom still recalls the time when she had a school Christmas concert that she could not miss because she was a performer, and she missed out on the yearly airing of Rankin Bass's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. She still swears she's scarred for life. But the VCR changed all that, because now all you had to do was use a blank tape to record your show and watch it later, at your leisure. But you still had to rewind it. Good thing your grandpa bought you that tape rewinder machine, right? Number 9. The Pizza Hut Book It thing. When bribery led to pepperoni pizza. I'm convinced that every 1980s kid read books just for the thrill of getting that tiny 4-inch wide personal pan pizza as a reward. But Pizza Hut was an entirely new experience back then. You didn't just go in, collect your order, and leave like you would today. No. Back then, the Hut had all these cozy red leather booths to go with those gorgeous red drinking glasses, of which I bought some, full of soda, and each booth had a Tiffany lamp, usually that said Coca-Cola or pizza on it. I think they had a candle on each table too. And all of these things just combined with a steaming hot pizza to create like this welcoming ambiance of family fun and great memories. At least until you burned your tongue on some hot sauce. Number 10. Toy-inspired TV shows. G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Care Bears, Transformers, Toy TV, adverts in disguise. I swear, all those shows were good, but you just know they were primarily made to entice a bunch of kids to beg for those colorful plastic toys as presents for their next birthday. I do have to admit that adverts like that were really effective, though. I mean, how else did I end up with the My Little Pony Lullaby Nursery House, right? Number 11. Fitness Madness. The dawn of the fitness craze came complete with some very unusual and colorful exercise gear. And by unusual, I mean people, they wore short shorts over their jogging pants, topping off the look with a ridiculous headband to hold back their towering hairdo that was held in place by 3 cans of Aquanet. Other people, more of the sexy ones, they favored the leg warmer, leotard and thong, and super shiny spandex look, but to each their own. And it wasn't just the wardrobe that was weird, no. Food companies started marketing new products, like diet products, that promised to melt away the flab or to keep you from piling it on in the first place. Stuff like extra sugar-free gum with NutraSweet and Pam cooking spray. And if you weren't starving yourself on fat-free cottage cheese and oversteamed broccoli, you had other weight loss tools at your disposal. Things like Richard Simmons' Sweatin' to the Oldies series, which I still love and enjoy, jazzercise classes, and then we had those funny machines that claimed to shake off the fat. Honestly, the only thing those vibrating machines probably did was just to make your fat jiggle and tear your spandex until you went home to cry into your fat-free yogurt and salted rice cakes. Number 12. The first MTV Awards, September 4th, 1984, at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, was a day of historical significance for the music scene. The first MTV Awards were hosted by Bette Midler and Dan Aykroyd, and they honored the best music videos produced between May of '83 and May of '84. Along with the show's winners and nominees being announced, notable moments of the show featured Madonna having a wardrobe malfunction on stage, as well as Cyndi Lauper reading the voting rules in gibberish. Why? I don't know. Number 13. The rise and fall of the Cabbage Patch Doll. I have no idea why these creepy dolls with their big dumb faces and vacant eyes were so popular, but then I've never been a huge fan of dolls. Whatever the reason, cabbage mania had taken over, and many a migraine pounded out the brains of stressed out parents who were desperate to buy this toy for their daughters for Christmas in 1983. There was such a mad dash to acquire these dolls that today it's known as the Cabbage Patch Riots. Okay. Similar to the frenzy of the 1990s when everyone was after Tickle Me Elmo and the Beanie Babies and Furbies, which were three other toys I could not care less about at the time. People often got injured trying to snag these toys from other customers. Now, okay, all you younger parents out there who have like 2-year-olds, take a lesson from this stupidity. No toy is that important, and your kids are not going to remember half of the toys you give them anyway. Instead, give them good memories by taking them to the park, take them to the beach, or spend time baking cookies with their grandparents. I'm not saying your kids shouldn't have toys, but if getting your hands on one involves taking part in a riot and possibly hurting someone to get it, you probably should reevaluate your life. Most toys are probably going to end up in some landfill anyway, so make memories, not waste. And speaking of shopping, that brings me to number 14, the golden age of malls, where all the preppy cool kids hung out. Back in the day, if you spent your weekends at the mall, you were in the cool kid club. Even if you didn't actually buy much, there was still so many things to do at a mall. You could grab a meal at the food court for under $5, and even though it was cheap and unhealthy, for some reason it just tasted fantastic. Then you could catch a movie if your mall had a theater, and pay an astronomical sum for a tiny bucket of cold greasy popcorn, ending the day with an ice cream cone and probably a live performance from a high school marching band raising money for charity. Malls were just fun back then, and they were like often packed with people, not like the ghost towns they are today. Oh, and Christmas shopping at the mall was an experience that we 80s kids never forgot. Mom would get us up before dawn on Black Friday. Only, we never called it Black Friday. We always called it the day after Thanksgiving. Anyways, on the day after Thanksgiving, we'd often grab a quick breakfast at a diner or a donut shop. Or if we weren't too tired to cook from the previous day, we'd usually cook a quick breakfast. And then we'd drive to the mall and wait for it to open. We'd get inside and it would be all decorated and full of lights. Christmas music would be blasting over the loudspeaker, like the first Christmas music we'd heard that season. Because the radio stations didn't really start playing it right after Halloween like they do now. And after an afternoon of finding deals on everybody's gifts, and a few deals for things for us, we'd head home at sunset to enjoy Thanksgiving leftovers and to start digging the Christmas decorations out of the attic for decorating the house the next day. Yes, there was once a time when the Christmas season was only allowed to begin once Thanksgiving ended, and in my house, that's still the rule. Number 15, Prince Charles and Diana's wedding. It is estimated that over 750 million people tuned in to watch this iconic event on July 29, 1981. It was the first royal wedding to take place at St. Paul's Cathedral since 1501, and it cost about $48 million at the time, which, adjusted for inflation, would be about $137 million today, just to give you some perspective. Horse-drawn carriages transported the bride and groom across London, reminiscent of Cinderella's wedding, and 27 wedding cakes were made. The main cake was about 5 feet tall and weighed about 200 pounds. Diana's wedding dress also broke some records with its extravagance. It was made from ivory silk taffeta, and it was covered in 10,000 pearls and boasted a 25-foot train that was the longest in royal wedding history. The veil was 459 feet long. How did she get into the carriage? Number 16. Unusual electronic devices. We had radios that looked like food. I distinctly remember having a radio that looked just like a sun-kissed orange with the red and white straw sticking out of it. We also had phones that looked like cartoon characters, often with insanely long spiral cords. Battery-operated toys that talked were becoming mainstream, like Teddy Ruxpin and Speak and Spell, and of course the flashier they were, the better. All in bright colors, of course. Anything that glowed or talked was very popular, kind of like that multicolored Fisher-Price flashlight, you know, the one that was like red, green, and blue. You could change the colors. Oh, that was cool. And also Glow Baby. Futuristic electronics like the Casio calculator watch or the Epson pocket television also appeared, making users feel like they were in touch with their inner Jetson. Little did we know that our cell phones would replace all these devices in time. Number 17, the Challenger explosion. If you're sensitive to this type of content, you might want to skip this section. But you cannot deny that history happened, because if you forget it, then we're going to repeat it. On January 28th, 1986, the world was horrified to witness the explosion and subsequent death of 7 astronauts as they attempted a mission to outer space. Hurtling toward the sky at over 1,500 miles per hour, the shuttle's right rocket booster began creating smoke as an O-ring disintegrated. And it was a big O-ring, like 35 feet circumference. Really big O-ring. And the O-ring disintegrated, broke a seal, and it allowed gases and fluids to mix. As the world watched, escaping fuel ignited, causing an explosion that tore the boosters and rocket from the shuttle at about 45,000 feet above ground, a noise that literally was heard all around the world. The crew, if any were alive at this point, fainted from the oxygen being sucked out of the shuttle cockpit, and it is thought that they suffocated to death before the crew cabin fell back to Earth and plunged into the ocean at 200 miles per hour. It was located about a month later by a diving crew. How did this happen? Well, in short, those in charge were trying to cut corners, but instead they ended up cutting short the lives of 7 people. 7 deaths that could have been prevented. Okay, moving on. Number 18, the era of scratch and sniff stickers and other scented school supplies. Who didn't love scratching a sticker that smelled like popcorn or taking a test with a Hershey's chocolate scented pencil? And who could forget those god-awful Mr. Sketch scented markers that smelled not so much like the items they portrayed, but more like a chemical factory? And yet, I would love to smell those again today. Number 19, waterbeds. We really thought we were cool with those crazy waterbeds. Not only were they very calming to lay on, but they also were heated to keep you warm in the winter, which was great on those sub-zero nights. However, they also came with their share of problems. Everything from temperature control issues to a sudden sprung leak that spelled disaster for your bedroom carpet. Those were all potential risks waterbed owners dealt with, and they eventually dwindled in popularity. I've only known like 3 people who had them in the 80s, and only 2 of them still use them to this day. So there's still a few diehard waterbed fans out there. Do any of you still use one? Number 20. Last but certainly not least, the 1980s was when the song We Are the World was released. We Are the World was created by Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson as a single to raise money for the starving people of Ethiopia. It became one of the most successful singles in history and raised more than $80 million in aid, which would be about $240 million today. Okay, so that was your 20 1980s iconic things. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more cool stuff from my channel, not only from the 1980s, but other things, don't forget to check out my channel in the description. Until next time, stay unhidden.